I am starting a little video here, so you guys got to pay attention to what's going on here. I am going to start with secant angles. And secants, ladies and gentlemen, are segments that intersect. If we're talking about secants intersect the circle in how many points? Right. They intersect in 2 points. Now, when we're talking about secant angles, there are a few different types of situations that are going to happen. One is when you're going to add arcs together, and the other one is when you're going to subtract arcs together. But it's always going to be the average. Because remember, that equation we had, 2 times the angle is equal to the arc. Well, if you divide that by 2, the angle is equal to the arc divided by 2. So if we just do that, we get the arc divided by 2, which is just 1/2 times the arc. But now, what's going to happen is, for example, and I'm going to go through and I want to show you these by example. If we're looking for this angle right here, there's an arc we got to deal with there, and there's an arc we have to deal with here. So now there are 2 arcs. And so there's only 2 ways that we can really combine the arcs. We can either add them or subtract them. And for this first kind, if the angle is inside the circle, and I'll say it's not on or outside, the angle measure is going to be equal to 1/2 arc 1 plus, this is the only one where you're going to add, plus arc 2. So this angle right here that we're dealing with is going to be arc 1 plus arc 2. So the measure of the angle that we're dealing with is 1/2 175 plus 55. Now, what did I say about if the angle is inside? What are we going to do with the arcs? All right. It's always 1/2. And then what are we going to do to the arcs themselves? Add them. These are the only ones you add. Everything else you're going to subtract. Okay? So 155, that's 0, carry the 1. That's 13, carry the 1. That's 230. Now I got to take half 230. That's the measurement of the angle. 1, 1, 5. 115 degrees. So that's the measure of the angle. This angle right here is 115 degrees. Is that horrible?
No. It's a lot of work.
That is so not a lot of work.
That's enough.
All right, now take a look at this guy. The angle is outside the circle. Now, here is the formula. The measure of the angle is going to be equal to 1/2 the far arc minus the near arc. Makes it look like frowny faces. But you can think of it as 1/2 the larger arc minus the smaller arc. So it would be 1/2, what's the larger arc? There's this arc right here, and then there's the major arc right here. Major, minor, you can think of it like that. What's the biggest one? 140 degrees. And I'm going to subtract. What's this one? 50 degrees. So what's 140 minus 50? 90 degrees. What's half of 90? 45 degrees. That's equal to the measure of angle R. So this guy right here is 45 degrees. Is that horrific? Yeah.
So wait, why did you divide in half? Isn't that
There's half right there, half by there, half by there. 1/2 times 90. Or 90 divided by 2. 90 times 0.5. Doesn't matter. You just need half of it. You got to cut it in half. Now, there's a third case. And number 5 is the third case. The angle is on the circle. Now, how many arcs are there? For that angle here, how many arcs are there? 1. So, can we add or subtract anything there? No, you just use the 1 arc. So, the measure of angle Q is just going to be equal to 1/2 the 194. So, half of 19 is 9, because that'll get us to 18. There's 1 left over. What's half of 14? 7. Well, half of 19 is would be 9, and so that would be 18. So it's left 1's left over, so it'd be 14 left. So I did some long division just right there. Or you could have, if you wanted to, you could have did this. That's what I did. It's just that 1, I put it up there. Because I've been doing this for 30 years. It is a long time.
30 years?
So, ladies and gentlemen, the key to all of this is to determine when you're going to add or subtract arcs. You're going to add arcs when you have, I call these the X-Men problems because you always draw an X inside the circle. When you have an X inside the circle, you're either going to, if you're looking for angles, you're going to add the arcs together and divide by 2. As soon as you're outside, it's always, I'm not quite sure, oh, there we go. It's always going to be the far one minus the close one. It's always going to be 140 minus 50, which will give you 90 degrees, and then just take half of that, you're good to go. So, like, for this guy, you're going to add these two together, then divide by 2. These guys, what are you going to do with these those two arcs? You subtract them. But when you only have 1, can you add or subtract? No, you just divide it by 2. You're always going to divide it by 2. Because remember, it's 2 times the angle is equal to the arc, or the angle is equal to the arc divided by 2, or arc times 1/2. Yes, ma'am? Ooh, number 7. This is a good one. Now, we're still looking for the arc. So I know that the angle is equal to 1/2 arc 1 plus arc 2. Or you could say 2 times the angle is equal to arc 1 plus arc 2. Does that make sense? I took the 1/2 and I multiplied both sides by 2 and I put the 2 on the other side. So instead of having 1/2 times the arc stuff, I got rid of that, and it's just arc 1 plus arc 2 is equal to 2. It goes to that equation, 2 times the angle is equal to the arc.
So is that 2 angle equals
Arc 1 plus arc 2. Now, do I know the angle? Well, how much is the angle? 85 degrees. So I know 2 times 85 is going to be equal to, do I know one of the arcs? Yeah, it's 70 degrees. Do I know the other guy? No. So I'll just put an X there. So what's 2 times 85? What's 2 times 5? 10. Carry the 1. 8 times 2 is 16. So it's 170 is equal to 70 degrees plus X. So subtract 70. 100 degrees is equal to X. So this guy down here is 100 degrees. So you're just going to manipulate the equation because in the equation there's always 3 unknowns. There's an angle and there's 2 arcs. Unless you only have the 1 arc, then there's 2 unknowns. And in this case, one of the unknowns is the angle, one of the unknowns is the arc, and we put them in there. You could have put 85 there is equal to 1/2 70 plus X, and then you just multiply by 2 anyway and get your 170. So does that make sense? That's about as easy as that gets. Alright, now I want to take a look at the next one. I'm going to take a look at secant tangent and tangent tangent angles. Same thing. 2 times the angle is equal to the arc. Or the angle is equal to 1/2 times the arc. Or the angle is equal to 1/2 times the far arc minus the close arc. And it really doesn't matter if there's tangents or anything like that. Now let's take a look at this first one right here. When you have a tangent and a secant, and so this guy here is your secant, because it'll intersect through 2 spots. Even though it looks like a chord, the arc that you actually are looking for is this arc right here. That's the arc that you're looking for. Now, this is what we want. But the arc that you're actually going to calculate for is the arc that's in the angle, because the arc and the angle are both together in that case. So I know that's 76 degrees, so I know 2 times the angle is equal to the arc. Correct?
Yes.
Alright, so I know the angle, so I'm going to use this equation, this first equation. 2 times the arc, or 2 times the angle is equal to arc. 2 times 76. 2 times 76 is equal to the arc. So that's 13, carry the 1, 14. 153 degrees is equal to the arc. So this guy right here is 153 degrees. But the question is, what's that beastie right there? So, the circle itself, what's the circle total? 360, not 180.
That's 152.
Yeah, that's 152.
That's what I said, 152.
You wrote 153.
Yeah, 152. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Alright, so now, together, the entire circle is 100, or is what? 360 degrees, right? How many arcs is this circle cut into? 2. So just take 360 degrees minus 152 degrees. That's 5. That'll give you an 8. That'll give you 0. That's a 2. So this guy's 208 degrees. Thank you. That's because, I've been doing this for 15... I've been teaching geometry for 15 years. I've been doing geometry for... 30. Oh my God, it's 30 now. No, not that much. You're fired. Alright. Now, here's an issue. Here's an issue. Alright, I got an angle. This is the ice cream cone picture. Now, how many arcs do this is a tangent right here. That's a tangent. And this is a tangent. So when you get your two tangents, they create this ice cream approach to it. But the key is, how many arcs are there? And yet, there's 2. There's this one right here, and there's this one over here. That's X, and that's Y. Now, there's a trick to this. If I add X plus Y, what do I get? Not X times Y. That's like saying if I went 2 plus 5, that's equal to 2 times 5. Well, what's 2 plus 5?
6. I'm joking.
7. What's 2 times 5? 10. Not the same thing. So X plus Y is not equal to XY. Now, if I want this all in one variable, because I have one equation, and remember, if I have one equation, how many unknowns can I possibly have in order to solve it? Just one. Just one. I can't have 2. Remember, the number of... Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, the number of equations has to be equal to the number of unknowns, or else you can't solve for the actual value. So I need to get rid of the x's or the y's. But since this guy's my x, and that's the question mark, I'm going to get rid of the y. So I'm going to subtract an x from both sides, and y is going to be equal to 360 minus x. So this guy's really 360 minus x.
That's the answer.
No, we're not even close to the answer. We haven't even set up the equation yet. Now, this is math trick. This is a math trick. When you don't know the two arcs, one of them is going to be the x, and one of them is going to be 360 minus x. Because if this was 50, how am I going to figure out what this one would be? 360 minus 50, right?
310.
Which would be 310. But now, when we don't know algebraically what they are, one's going to be x, one's going to be 360 minus x. Now we can set it up. 2 times the angle, 2 times 50 degrees is going to be equal to the biggest arc, 360 minus x, minus the smallest arc, which is x. So what's x? What's a negative x minus x? Negative 2x. What's 2 times 50? So I got 100 there. I have 360 there minus 2x. Now, since we're not afraid of negative numbers, minus 360 from both sides, negative 260 is equal to negative 2x. Now, if it's negative on both sides, does the negative matter at all? Not at all. That's why we're not afraid of negative numbers. And you're probably going to dump it into a calculator anyway, so even if it's easy like this, and you can look at it and say, well, 26 divided by 2 is just 13, right?
Yeah. So it's add a 0.
So it's, yeah, just add a 0 to it, it's 130. So x is equal to 130 degrees. So this arc is 130 degrees. If you wanted to figure out what this arc is, 360 minus 130 degrees. So that would be 230. And 230 minus 130 is 100. Divide that by 2. What do you get? Look at what the angle is there. Does it work? Now, the only difference here is, like if I have 120, and that says 120 is this arc right here. How do I figure out what this arc right there is? What's the rest of the circle? 360 minus 120 is 240 degrees. So that's 240 degrees right there. So now I know that measure of angle Q is going to be equal to 1/2 240 minus 120. So it's 1/2 of 120, which is 60 degrees. So I know the measure of angle Q is equal to that. Capiche? Now, ladies and gentlemen, as I always say, do not make this stuff harder than it actually is. The formulas are exactly the same. It's always, unless it's on the inside, it's always going to be the biggest arc minus the smallest arc. If both segments are inside the circle and make an X, you have 2 secants. Not a tangent and a secant, but if you have 2 secants, then you're going to add. 2 secants you add, everything else you subtract. And I will tell you on the secant tangent and the tangent tangent, you're going to subtract. This one, you're going to subtract every single time. This first one, like this guy, you got to add that. That plus that is equal to 2 times that. So you guys think you can fight through this at least to start with? Give it a try, and then tomorrow we can talk more about how you did. The third worksheet we're going to worry about tomorrow. It's with you right now because I printed it out and I just didn't want to hang around. But don't do anything with it yet because it's totally different than what we've been doing. Is everybody okay? All right.